So, good morning, everyone. I've entitled this morning's talk The Three S's: Silence, Stillness, and Spaciousness. Silence. The chime of the bell breaks the curtain of silence, perhaps once, perhaps 21 times, as we often practice on Sunday morning. It serves as a gentle reminder to pay attention to the present moment, to let go of our stories, our histories, and plans and fantasies for the briefest duration, and savor this precious present moment just once, or until the bell rings again, and then again, and yet again. But why the reminder? Why can it be so uncomfortable or so difficult to simply sit in silence without some distraction, without a reminder, without audible stimulation? An accomplished composer recognizes that the silence between the notes is just as important to the composition as the notes themselves. In 1875, in an essay titled Social Aims, Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "Don't say things. What you are stands over you the while, and thunders so that I cannot hear what you say to the contrary." Have you ever had the experience of, wow, it is so quiet without the fill in the blank turned on? And then maybe the power goes out in a storm, and you really get to experience quietude without the background, ambient whir of all of your appliances. It can be eerily silent. That silence is within us all, so I invite you to pay attention to the silence, to invite it, to cultivate times of silence. You may be surprised at what you hear. Stillness. A child, perhaps your younger self, drops a pebble into a pond and watches the ripples that the disruption creates, ever widening, ever expanding, until maybe the ripple, which in and of itself is not really even a thing but a movement, hits a boundary and doubles back on itself, creating a more complex pattern of movement until it doubles back on itself again and creates yet another facet of this mosaic. It continues bouncing back and forth like a dance on what was once a still mirror-like surface, until eventually even the micro disturbances wear themselves out and simply settle back into stillness. A stillness where anything is possible. Yes, there is walking meditation, and yes, Thich Nhat Hanh spoke of washing the dishes meditation and taking out the trash meditation in an effort to be mindful during even the most mundane of times and tasks. But typically, we sit still, inviting a lack of activity, inviting the recognition of how much is going on externally and internally in our own bodies, the beating of our hearts, breathing, innumerable fidgets and posture corrections and itches that need to be scratched, and, and, and. Don't even get me started with the cacophony of thoughts. Exercise science tells us that muscle is built during rest periods, not during physical activity. specifically and most importantly during our deep sleep cycle at night. How counterintuitive. I go to the gym to whatever, fill in the blank, through progressive overload and time under tension. However, we stress our musculature, effectively creating thousands of small micro tears in our muscles. Perhaps an apt analogy for the stresses of family, work, juggling hectic schedules, sitting in traffic, etc. Essentially, the business of life. How often do we intentionally plan for downtime, stillness, breath work, meditation, in order to rebuild stronger, allow the muscle of resiliency to strengthen in order to repair the micro tears in the fabric of our lives? As a colleague once told me, whelmed, though not a word, is good. Overwhelmed is not. Allow yourself to be underwhelmed every now and then. Seek it out. Invite it. Lean into it. You may be surprised at how you act in its wake. And lastly, spaciousness. When I think of the word spaciousness, a few concepts come to mind. Vast nothingness, expansive room for healthy perspective, and as woo-woo as it might sound, the phrase, the field of pure potentiality. And contrary to vast nothingness, hearkening back to my youth, I recall Carl Sagan's pale blue dot quote. I will paraphrase. Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar and supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home that we have ever known. So I will end this morning's Dharma talk with yet another brief quote from Carl Sagan. Be grateful every day for the brief but magnificent opportunity that life provides. And I invite your comments.
Thank you, Johnny. Very nice.
This is not a jest. When you said the three S's, I immediately thought that that's a good name for a Sesame Street episode too.
I concur.
On the spaciousness, the thing that came to me, and so I am in part trained as a chemist. So like when you go to astronomy, that has never really run for me. But you can even bring it, the spaciousness, into that, because when you look at atoms and what makes up the world in space, and so like doing computational chemistry, one of the courses I took, like even when you look at a molecule and that's what makes up everything, it's mostly space. It's mostly that openness and probability and potentiality in even something so small as that. So even when if you scale it up or you scale it down, you still get that spaciousness as a quality of existence. So that's what came to me when you were talking on the larger scale. My brain tends to the smaller scale. So even there you see it too.
Agreed. You do see it there. It's a microcosm of the macro. Yeah, thank you for that comment.
Thank you, Johnny. This is Jenny. I closed my eyes when you were reading that quote or the poem by Carl Sagan. And, I think when we sit in silence and stillness, that the spaciousness is in our hearts and opening our hearts to compassion. And that's a great gift, with the war and everything that's been going on. I've been tussling with everything. And I feel like I've been walking around with a clenched jaw. And the moments of silence and stillness remind me that I have a global heart and I do care about those people that we see in Ukraine that are suffering. So in the hurt of that, I told Pete the other day that I'm grateful for the hurt and that I do care, because I want to believe that we're more similar than different. But with that Sagan quote, it reminds us of corrupt politicians and the horror of power and the talisman of a title to pillage and destroy. That's a very hard concept, but I guess when you think of stillness and silence, I think of the spaciousness of my heart, to open my heart to compassion for others, and tasting the saline in their tears. I'm grateful for the hurt, I guess, and that it bends and not breaks me, that I honor that space in my heart for others. And that's what those three S's mean to me. I hope that makes sense, but thank you. You've got a wonderful voice like Glenn does, and I could listen to you on Insight Timer, and you could joyfully bring me into a day and take me out of it as well. So I thank you I took notes and I drew flowers on what I was writing today. So in the stillness and silence, there's peace in my heart today. So thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Nice words. I love the sentiment of inviting the hurt or being grateful for the hurt. I continue to be inspired by the members of our Sangha. And like Glenn mentioned at the beginning of our service today, the broken statue, an act of maybe random, mindless vandalism, but we take a broken piece of that and kind of celebrate it in a way and bring it into the fold of our practice. I just think that's a lovely sentiment, to be grateful for the hurt. And as I had a teacher once who used to say, the spaciousness, the silence is where the magic happens. And I don't study with that teacher anymore, but I still remember that comment because I like to fill up the empty spaces with activities and um, anyway. So now I'm trying to cultivate. That's my personal practice, and I continue to be inspired by everyone in this sangha to do that, to create a little more and cultivate a little more spaciousness in my life.
I think the important thing to remember in our Zen tradition is that what you're talking about, these three S's, the silence, the stillness, the spaciousness, for us, the practice of those three is enlightenment. It is realization, it is awakening. That's why Dogen says that Zazen is not step-by-step meditation to get us somewhere, but it is in fact the practice of being a Buddha. There was one of the groups that I follow on Facebook is a Soto Zen discussion group, and a newcomer to it asked the question yesterday, what is enlightenment in Zen? And there are about 40 or 50 responses, not a one of which talked about some otherworldly or mystical experience. But every one of them was centered around being present in the present moment, simply being here, recognizing the stillness and the silence and the spaciousness in every moment. And I was actually kind of happy with that because sometimes this group gets a little contentious. It was nice to see a fairly consistent response from people. But it is one of the things that sets Zen apart from other traditions in Buddhism. And I guess one of the things that sets Buddhism apart, here our ultimate goal is realization / enlightenment / awareness. And yet all the different schools can have a totally different opinion of what that is. And fine. Yeah, I don't agree with the Tibetan school. I don't agree with the Theravada school, but fine, they don't agree with me either. And I think that acceptance is really cool about Buddhism, that we can have these separate opinions and still say, but no, we still follow the same path. So thank you for that, Johnny. It blended very well with that that post I was reading last night about how do we look at realization in the Zen tradition. Well, we look at it as living in silence and stillness and spaciousness.
Thank you, Glenn. So full disclosure, the three categories, I wish I came up with them, but I actually borrowed them from a meditation I found online, a guided meditation, which I thought was just a lovely way to, not that we need another list, but there you go. You got another list, right? And what I did kind of as a nod in honor of a former teacher of mine, I just took them and instead of trying to associate them directly with the Dharma, tried to associate them with just pragmatically real life and my experiences. And I do find it a lovely categorization of if I need to focus on something, what would it be? And that's what's showing up for me these days is a little more and a little more space in between the notes. So
Oh,
anyone else have any comments?
I wanted to mention really quick that I was late to the cell phone party and I'm still not a huge fan of having one. But the one thing I realized I missed, and so I'm trying to do that again, when you have to wait for the doctor, when I'm at the restaurant and my husband goes to wash his hands. I became one of those people that never touched my cell phone to one of those people that find myself reaching for the cell phone because there's a couple moments. And it's so weird how automatic it can become if you don't think about it. And so now I purposefully say, these are those moments that they always say is your chance to breathe, is your chance to just be. And it's kind of odd how it seems comfortable to do that at home, but it's not as comfortable in public always, at least for me. When no one's paying attention to me. So that's something I'm doing again that I'm glad I realized.
Yay.
There's a
Yeah.
very cool, cartoon, couple sitting in a coffee shop. And there's a guy at the next table who's just sitting there with a cup of coffee. This couple is discussing him and going, "That's bizarre. He's not on his computer. He's just sitting there drinking coffee. It's so weird." And yeah, I think that is, when we're in public, it feels odd to simply sit in silence. Fortunately, I embraced being a bit of an oddball, so I enjoy doing it and getting those looks. But yeah, you're right. It's one of those things that is not expected in the public life.
When I used to travel a lot more, I'm a self-avowed people watcher. And in airports, if you put your cell phone down and just watch people, it's a lot less interesting because it's much more nuanced because pretty much everyone's doing this as they're walking and bumping into others and the luggage carts and and everything. But it is interesting how it's like, people just get sucked into it, kind of like it's a carrot on a stick attached to them, but they're holding it. So, but thank you for that comment, Laura.
My name's Pud, and I find that I can meditate best if I'm floating in water. The other day, I was the only person in a city pool, and if I can float, and when I do, I don't move my body at all, but the water is moving, so it'll move me around in the water. And I've got goggles on, but even so, I just shut my eyes, and just for a brief minute before I bang onto the other side of the swimming pool, I can really get a sense of that space in the middle. That space or that meaningfulness or something. And it seems most present when I float.
Sounds like a cool practice, bud.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. I'll take that as a suggestion. That's going on my list. Thank you, Pud.
This is Sebastian. Yeah, thank you, Pud. I kind of related to that at the beginning of this practice with the sound, the bell. At the beginning, I felt like, like I could sit still, but it was kind of pushing me. And like I could feel the waves, sort of. So yeah, I really like that sound in the beginning, and can relate to that kind of feeling that you're talking about in the pool, but like with the sound waves.
Lovely. Thank you, Sebastian. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share? Okay, well, thank you, everyone. for sharing your practice with us today. And we can wrap it up. Creations are numberless. I will strive to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I will strive to transform them. Reality is boundless. I will strive to perceive it. The awakened way is unsurpassable. I will strive to embody it. May your thoughts, words, and actions be corrective and encompassing of the pragmatic Buddhist path. May you approach this week with deference and dignity, and may you spread your personal peace to all those you encounter. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. Svatha. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend and great
Thanks,
week.
all. Have a great weekend or week.